Imagine regretting your biggest investment, which is a piece of real estate. This family were actually dreaming of buying this 1980s built home for their family. They thought that would be their dream house. They will never have to move out of this property. Little did they know is that this house came with a lot of hidden issues, from health hazard issues to skyrocketing repairs. They actually regret buying this property. Stay tuned and I'll tell you the things that you'd be looking out when buying these type of homes.
Wood rot. As a carpenter who deals primarily with home repair, I see wood rot constantly, and I've come to the conclusion that no home-related topic is more misunderstood than this one. The main reason for this seems to be that most homeowners actually can't even identify wood rot.
So you see, homes built in the 1980s, there's nothing wrong with it. They're lovely houses. But you also have to understand these homes are not all put together to today's standards. So we have to take a look right now of the things that you should be mindful and where you should actually be even paying for a second opinion when it comes to like an inspector or a professional that can tell you what could be wrong with that house. Let's start with energy efficiency. Homes built in the 1980s, we all know they are not energy efficient at all. There is nothing energy efficient about these properties. So you have to be mindful that windows probably need to be repaired or replaced. Doors have to also be replaced. The air draft in these around these things, it's probably costing you thousands of dollars because you don't have the proper insulation around these properties, and the insulation starts with your doors and windows. You see, high energy bills, it's another indication that this house also has some issues that you need to really pay attention to these bills. So it's important that you request from the person selling the house if they have a copy of the most recent 12 months of what the seller has been spending in all the utilities. At least you have an idea. Granted, the way a seller lives right now is not necessarily the way you will be. Maybe you like the thermostat to be in the 70s, right? Maybe the other seller likes it to be in the 60s. It's, it all depends, but it's a good indication that you probably will be facing certain things that energy bills will tell you. So very important. Another thing to look for is uneven temperatures in different rooms. Each rooms are going to have different temperatures sometimes. So it's important for you to look at there is an even temperature is even all throughout the different rooms, different levels. Granted, basements, lower levels are always going to be colder, but it shouldn't be a significant or dramatic change from the upstairs. So make sure that your home inspector has some kind of thermal gun that can measure the temperature of the air, either is cold or hot, that comes out from the registers, so you really understand what you're going up to. Insufficient insulation, air leaks are again another common thing, so maybe consider doing like an energy efficient audit to the property. You can do this during the home inspection phase, or you can do it after you purchase the house, as long as you understand that you're actually getting what you want. Another thing with the windows is that it indicates the insulation of the property. If you look at windows that maybe have some kind of moisture built around them, that also is indication that those windows need to go. You need to replace them. It also will be an indication of the amount of air, the draft that you are experiencing in this particular room. So pay attention to the windows. Outdated appliances are also a big issue. Let's be honest, right? Grandma's stove is not what it's in today's market. It's very different. Those stoves probably were using a lot of energy consumption. If they were gas, also using a lot of gas. Again, they're not as safe as what we have right now. So we have to be very careful when it comes to those things. So energy efficient appliances are very important, as well as other electric items in the property. Another big issue that this family was experiencing is dry rot. What is dry rot? Dry rot is caused by a fungus inside of a property that feeds off wood. At the same time it's feeding off wood, it's weakening your structure in the house. So that can potentially have issues with your wooden structure. The name of the fungus is called Saporula lacrimans, which is the wood becomes cracked and brittle and eventually breaks down. Dry rot occurs when the spores are present in the air. And with a damper timber or timber full of moisture, they only need about 20% of moisture presence for this fungus to start growing up. The moisture in the timber also results from other issues. I just recently said about windows. Imagine windows with all this liquid forming around, all this condensation. That's an indication that the seal of the window is broken, as well as maybe the entire structure of the window. It needs to probably be replaced. Maybe there's not any good insulation left. So many things. And of course, leaky gutters, pipes, downspouts, and things of that nature that have not been properly treated can potentially lead to the build of this moisture. The dry rot has different stages. The number one is spores. They are present everywhere and into the properties, and it are just always, they look like a little spots. Little spots is not completely rotten or destroyed. It's just a little spot, like the different color that you will find, and that's kind of when the early stages when they are building up. Hypha is when the spores land in the damp timber or moist timber. They grow into hypha, which are fine white strands that infiltrate and break down the timber, extracting moisture. And the very last one is called mycelium, very last stage. Hypha becomes mycelium. It's a cotton-like substance that spreads out to find new sources of timber. This is cancer, basically, right? It's just spread out and it's trying to eat a lot of the wood, the timber that it's in your property. And let's be honest, most of the homes here in the United States and here in Maryland, for sure, are all made of timber. So it's very important that you pay attention to that. So any kind of discoloration that you see in anywhere where wood and in the basement where the humidity levels could be a little bit higher, you always want to ask the question, or maybe go ahead and do some kind of air quality test just to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and your loved ones. Another big thing is asbestos. That's another thing. Asbestos were commonly used from the 1940s all the way to the 1980s. It can be found in roofing, insulation, adhesives, HVAC insulation, and in some type of paint, interior and exterior paints. Asbestos are not quite harmful if they are in good condition, but they can eventually become a powder that can be inhaled that can also cause lung cancer. It's very mindful about that. So some of the examples where you can find them is on some of the cements that are used for construction, some roofing shingles, insulation around steam pipes, vinyl floor tiles in basements here in Maryland are very common in homes built in the 80s. Textured paint, the ones that you put that popcorn ceiling, right? Remember? And some particular type of insulation called vermiculite. So some facilities in the United States may still contain that. So what happens if you find them? Well, you should find a contractor to give you an opinion of how much something like this will cost you to remove. According to ForbesHomes.com, the average cost to remove asbestos per square foot is between $5 and $20 in the United States. So a 200 square feet place or area, it will cost you between $1,000 to $4,000. The exterior removal of asbestos go from $50 to $150 per square foot. So it's very important to keep in mind the interior and exterior. And of course, you also have to keep in mind the time of the year when you're going to be doing especially the exterior work. So now let's move to foundations, right? Foundation is everything for a house. Sloping foundations can also give you an idea that it's a problem with the house. So what do you look into the foundations? What's the most visible thing to the human eye that you should be looking into foundation without you having to be an inspector? Cracks. Yep, cracks are the ones. By the way, let me know here in the comments, did you purchase a house that has cracks? What did you do to resolve the cracks? Did the cracks got worse within time, or were you able to fix them? I'll be curious to know if you were bold enough to buy a house with foundation cracks. So we have a horizontal cracks. Those are sometimes a hairline cracks, sometimes they're like a very wide cracks that can be at 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters cracks that go all around the walls in the foundation. In the center blocks, you can definitely see them as the gaps becomes bigger. Bowing walls are another great example. Walls may bow inward or collapse due to water or tree roots. Spalling. Spalling are bricks that may crack or break or may just flake off. Deteriorating mortar is due to the age that you will see it coming off between the bricks. And that can also be a big problem because that will lead to moisture penetrating these walls and the bricks getting loose, sinking. This is when the foundation may sink or heave upwards. So it's another indication that you have problems. And sometimes dirty or moldy bricks, it's a good idea of something that you need to be doing. So recently, one of my clients was buying a house, and we found that the moisture levels in the basement were extremely elevated. So at the end of the day, the seller had to put what is called a full insulation system in the basement with a sump pump to prevent for these walls to continue to absorb the moisture. It's a very expensive cost, but it is a long-lasting solution. So if you are in the process of that, tell your buyer that they have to be willing to even walk out of the deal if something like that it is present in the purchase at the time of inspection. Pooling water is another good indication. Even in Maryland, there is a question in the residential disclosure disclaimer that if water stays after a heavy 24 hours of heavy rain, if water tends to stay anywhere in the backyard and making some kind of puddles. Yeah, it's very important that you need to know those things, because if water is not able to be absorbed through the ground and move away from the house, there is an issue right there. And that part of the ground is going to be, it's going to soak, it's going to contain a lot of water, and eventually that water is going to start damaging your foundation wall. So a French drain could be a potential solution. Again, you need to consult with an expert what would be the best thing. Always, always, always the best recommendation, the cheapest one, is that your downspouts need to be rerouted away from the foundation wall as far as possible. And how do you do that? By installing a corrugated piece of plastic that you can buy at any hardware store that probably will not cost you more than $20 for 5 or 6 feet of this material. So be mindful of the things that you need to be doing to keep water away from your foundation wall. And the very last thing will be piping. All pipes in a house are very important to you to keep in mind that these pipes will be always taken care. You see, corroded pipes, belly pipes, sewer failure, outdated fixtures, and improper repairs can actually lead to have a lot of issues with these pipes. And the problem with these pipes is they are down in the ground. You don't always gonna know when something went bad with these pipes in the ground. So you gotta be careful with these things. Always ask a lot of questions. Listen, there is no problem asking many questions when buying a house. The more questions, the better it is. Always document those questions you're asking. Now, remember, the questions need to be asked to the seller's agent or the seller. Your buyer agent may not know all the answers because he or she has not lived in this property. So you need to obtain some kind of information from a seller agent on behalf of the seller. The more information you are able to gather, the better it is. The more inspections you're able to do, the better it is. I get it. In this environment with low inventory, some buyers can barely even see the property nor ask for it to do an inspection. So you have to be also mindful of these things. But believe me, I don't want you to go through any of these things. And that's it. We just got to the end of this video. Remember, I'm Robert Garcia here, your host, and I'm guiding you through the raw real estate in the easy, smart, and simplified way. If you see any value in this type of content, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I promise you'll see videos like this every week. If you need to get a hold of me, there's some links here at the bottom of this video where you can click and schedule an appointment. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.